and welcome to our third episode of the Finance Leadership Snapshot series. Today, I have with us Paul Harris, who is the General Manager of Corporate Services for Relationships Australia, New South Wales. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. Glad to be with you.
Thanks so much for taking time. I know we have rescheduled because you are absolutely manic at the moment, so we do appreciate you taking this 5 minutes to have a chat with us today.
That's fine, and yes, it has been quite busy, and I'm only into week 4 of this new role, and it's so far consisted of completely working from home. So that's been a unique experience as well.
Everything you could wish for. So I suppose the question of today is that, I mean, you're 4 weeks into this role. You know, I suppose even from when you were interviewing to now, things have changed significantly. How do you found what is happening at the moment in the market with regards to COVID-19 and how that's affected, obviously, your start to your role, but also a little bit about what you're doing right now? Like, has anything changed?
In terms of the business, and of course, prefacing my comments by the fact that I'm about to conclude only 4 weeks of business intelligence, of course, in my current role, is that we're in the not-for-profit sector. It's a business which has relied heavily and would probably continue to rely heavily on face-to-face consultation. And of course, with the social distancing rules and the requirements for us to all be physically apart, pretty much the basis of our business model, which is talking to people one-on-one or one-on groups, has gone out the window. We don't have a basis to continue with our current business model. So it's meant that the business, like many businesses, be it profit or not for profit, have had to pivot basically on a pinhead, and essentially pull forward what might have been a long-term plan to go online, and deliver our services remotely, be it our staff remotely and our clients remotely, but to actually probably bring that forward not only by weeks, but bring that forward by months, and to actually use a process which is called try, test, and then reset, as opposed to plan, think, act, think again, delay, think again, and then try and implement. So it's been an opportunity to and a trigger for change is what it's been. Without the opportunity for staff or clients to say, oh, really, I don't like change. It just hasn't been a point of discussion anymore.
Yeah. So that transition, I mean, that's pretty much the whole business, you know, because that's your service. Everything moved to online. Like, as you mentioned, there's no time for people to say that's not, I don't want to do this. So how did you find the transition? Were you there when they had to move everyone online? Like, were you there already?
The day I started, the business was about 1 week into, let's call it the working from home transition.
Yep.
And that was partly physically and telling people to stay at home, like we'd all been directed to do so. But also brought along all the usual IT challenges as well. And it could be simply as we discovered that a number of staff members weren't even connected to the internet or didn't have an internet facility. And I think many of us, maybe in management or at least in the IT department, assumed everyone has internet.
Yeah.
And therefore that's not even going to be a question. So it raised all sorts of and challenged all sorts of assumptions that we'd had about our staff. Firstly, our staff's ability to go working from home and go online, and that was without even challenging our client base as to whether they wanted to actually continue to interact with us online. Because many of our client interactions are talking to people at the worst times of their lives, which, you know, might include domestic violence or apprehended violence orders. It might include financial stress. It might include separation and divorce, and all sorts of personal relationships. And pretty much the business model being built around about talking to people, people to people, talking to people face to face. And so it changed the paradigm completely about what was an effective relationships set of services. And so part of the answer was, surprisingly, discovering that our staff could or couldn't deliver the services. And of course, subsequently dealing with their ability to work from home, whether it be trying to homeschool at the same time, have partners and other children also trying to work from home, like myself at the time, and without even considering the clients and their perspectives, which came along a little bit later.
Yeah, because you would have a number of clients that don't have internet access, or don't pay for internet access, and now, without that, they don't have a service.
That's true, and so that leads to possibly the next question, which is, how is the business
now
going?
What?
Yeah. Well, now what is, people variously calling what's the new normal.
Yeah.
But we'll get onto that at the moment. But just the financial and the business model, and it creates new opportunities. Delivering our services via online provision has brought out new opportunities for staff, new developments, and new leadership aspects across all levels of staff. An ability to think entrepreneurial about maybe what are potential new services that the business can deliver on the far side of COVID, and what is the new normal. It's probably now become less of the same and more of the new.
You're also your reach. The reach that you might have had a few clients that potentially can't come with you on this journey. They don't have access, but I suppose the ability now to be able to reach more people is much greater. It
is, and I guess Relationships Australia is a federated model with sister organisations operating similarly within every state. And so there is a question about geographic boundaries, but for us within the New South Wales boundaries, we've been rather constrained by only so far north to maybe Newcastle and the Hunter, and so far south to the Illawarra, and typically so far west. And so it's just, again, along with lots of other questions, raised the ability via online delivery, whether we, and should we, and can we, and will we reach all corners of New South Wales?
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, there's so many questions. It's going to be interesting to see in a few, I'll say even 6 months from now, that answer you'll probably have that answer. So that'll be really interesting. So, with this, I suppose, the new norm, what does the next 3 months look like for you? What is kind of the next stage?
It's about, and we've just come out of a 2-day strategic planning session with all the senior leadership team and the broader leadership group, where we were able to re-question for year 2 of our strategic plan, whether the 4 key strategic goals are still the same goals, whether they're still valid, whether they're still valid but look differently in terms of business planning opportunities, and certainly for one of the strategic goals, which is one for growth, we were talking completely different action plans in terms of year 2, 2020, 2021, that were being discussed by the business 12 months ago. It's raised the profile of innovation. It's raised the profile of anything's possible. You've got the ability to be brave and bold, and that all things are possible within financial constraints and funding, of course.
Yes.
Particularly in the NFP sector, of course. the senior leadership team, along with the broader leadership group, that we're yeah, and it's been said many times, be it by politicians and others, that we're all in this together. That from a strategic planning point of view, it's also the same. We're all in this together as well. So it's really, it's recast year 2 of our strategic plan from what it looked like 12 months ago for the upcoming financial year.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with you know, there's still a plan in place, and even though you've had to kind of restructure that year 2 plan, what challenges do you see in the next 6 months, you know, for you and your role, but also for the business?
Sorry, what was that? What
challenges do you see? You know, I suppose, you know, Scott Morrison saying that, you know, we're looking at this for a 6-month period initially, and then slowly, you know, things will start to kind of come back online. If that is the case, we don't know. I mean, what do you foresee as the biggest challenges that you face in your role within the business?
My role encompasses about 2 or 3 main strands. And one of those strands is the responsibility for risk and governance within my role. That space has taken on some new requirements, and one of them clearly is related directly to COVID. And it's to do with even, you know, operating from simple things or more complex things like working from home in terms of cybersecurity. And so just solving those problems in terms of people working from home, using their own internet, possibly using their own devices, has raised and brought forward the cybersecurity risk, which will lay the platform for a much broader rollout of online service delivery. So COVID has brought some benefits in terms of bringing forward projects like, you know, addressing head-on cybersecurity in the current environment. But it's also raised, of course, other challenges like retention of highly trained and professional staff. You know, how you know, many of our staff's jobs day to day, 5 days a week, are dealing face to face with people and clients. And so the challenge will be to how do we address and maybe redeploy them in terms of using their current capacity and skills into areas which will take the business forward and satisfy the new strategic plan, whilst you know, whilst retaining them as part of the old business model, which may still form part of the new normal. There are financial requirements. You know, how will our funders perceive RA New South Wales going forward? You know, the business is highly or significantly funded by under government contracts, and that's not unusual in the not-for-profit human services sector. That the budget, the federal budget, post-COVID, with all the safety net support that's been required for the national economy, will necessarily make funding for business as usual and not-for-profits harder to maintain, retain and gain, because the federal and state budgets have necessarily been, let's say, blown out of the water because of the economic requirements of COVID. So there'll be ongoing challenges of dealing with government and to gain, maintain and retain funding going forward.
To me, interesting times ahead. And so if you know, like I said, you've been in the company for 4 weeks in your new role. What sort of takeaway can you give, you know, any finance leaders, you know, going through this, you know, specific client, looking ahead at the challenges? What sort of takeaway could you give them, you know, to be able to assist them in their, I suppose, their future outlook?
And I think I've been, even though I opened the conversation by saying it's been a unique orientation and onboarding for me, which has never happened in the past and will most likely never happen in the future. that I started a job and walked directly from the kitchen to my upstairs temporary office. But the other side of that coin has been, it's been a huge benefit in terms of an accelerated interaction with my peers, with an accelerated interaction with my own team, with an accelerated interaction through the strategic replanning process that under normal circumstances in a new job, you may have swanned around the office for a few weeks, occasionally talking to people, deciding yourself what was a priority and what was not a priority in terms of your honeymoon period in a new job. But you just had to just jump into it. And I think I lost count after my first 2 weeks that I'd had at least 35 video conferences. And that now after 4 weeks has probably doubled. So you're getting close to 70. So I have been both. It's been both unique, and I've been lucky to have an orientation process in an extraordinary economic and health circumstance, being COVID, to be thrown not only in the deep end, but probably to sink to the bottom with a brick tied to my ankle. And you just have to get on with it. There is no other choice. You need to talk to as many people as possible. In my case, is by lots of video conferencing. Ask lots of questions. I'm now in a notepad here after almost 4 weeks. I'm almost filled. With thoughts, notes, things to remember, things to go back to, triggers for myself. But ultimately, I've tried to be brave in terms of my contribution to the conversation in the last 4 weeks in my new role, in whatever forum I've been involved in.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. Yes, under normal circumstances, going into a senior positions, it's a serious, sometimes daunting, and now doing that in this environment is just kind of taking it up a notch. So you're taking it in your stride, which is fantastic. And, really looking at the positives, and I'm glad that there is definitely some discussions that you guys are having in terms of different avenues for the business, because, Relationships Australia is a not-for-profit that's needed. We don't want to see that, disappear. So it's good that you guys are able to, think outside of what you have been doing and thinking, if this is business as usual, how can we grow it, which I think is fantastic.
Of course, there's always the technical piece where I have to well and truly jam my accounting hat on my head, which is business modelling, financial modelling, forecasting, and forecasting in an environment where all the variables are pretty much unknown. And so there's still the technical cash flow forecasting, P&L forecasting, which has to underlie the, supporting and confirming the sustainability of the business, as you're referring to there. So it's not all necessarily all blue sky and innovation. There's also that little piece, if not too little, of making sure that you're doing your accounting piece or your CFO role, as well as the corporate services role
side
as well, along at the same time.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. It was lovely to chat with you. And as per the other videos, we'll circle back around in a few months and see where you're at, and you'll be well embedded into your role by then as well. And we'll catch up then and see, what's been happening over the last couple of months and what the future holds.
Thank you, Claire. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.